There was one commenter that said this was super dense and they didn't care for it, so we're gonna see. Hi there! If you like lemon desserts, stick around, this recipe is for you. And if you like zucchini bread, stick around, this one's for you. If you've never had zucchini bread or zucchini muffins or a zucchini cake, don't click off the video just yet. It's really delicious. It doesn't taste like you're eating vegetables, but you're getting some health benefits to it. I'm gonna say that's what's going on here. Today we're making a lemon zucchini bread, and I'll link the recipe down below for you guys, but let's get right to it. So I'm going to take a large mixing bowl, and I'm gonna do this recipe, the steps of this recipe, a little different than the original recipe, but here we go. So I'm going to mix together our dry ingredients first. So we need 1.5 cups of flour. So white all-purpose flour. And make sure we're spooning it into our measuring cup. That way we aren't packing the flour down and adding too much flour. All right, 1.5 cups. We need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. A 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And then you may not have expected this one, but a teaspoon of cinnamon. All right, let's get that whisked together. And then I'm going to take a spatula, or you can take a wooden spoon, and we're just going to create a well in our flour, into which we're going to put our wet ingredients. So there's our little well. Into it, we're going to put 1 egg, room temperature if you can remember that. I'm not good at taking my eggs out before I start baking. But one trick that I'll use sometimes if I want to bring my eggs to room temperature is filling a glass or a cup with warm water and then placing your cold eggs in it and start the recipe, and then usually by the time I need the eggs, they've warmed up a little bit. We need 1/2 cup of oil, and the original recipe calls for vegetable oil. You can use canola oil. I'm using light olive oil, and that's essential. Well, you can get away with, it's pretty essential to use light olive oil when you're baking because it has a more neutral flavor to it, whereas extra virgin olive oil has a rich flavor. So use light olive oil and you don't have to worry about your sweets tasting like olive oil. We need 3/4 cup of white sugar. And then the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of lemon zest, but one person commented that they put a whole tablespoon of lemon zest in, and I think lemon zest it's what makes lemon desserts taste like lemon, so I'm gonna go with a whole tablespoon, which is 1 tablespoon is equal to 3 teaspoons. So we're just adding an extra teaspoon. And when you're zesting your lemon, just make sure you zest just down to the white. Once you get to the white, move on to an unzested spot because this white part is bitter. All right, lemon. The lemon zest is so fragrant and it smells so good. And then when I was whisking together our dry ingredients, the combination of the smell of the lemon zest with the smell of the cinnamon was so lovely. So I'm very excited to see what the flavors taste like. All right, I'm going to just work on my wet ingredients right in the middle of our bowl. I cracked my egg. I kind of want to get the egg and the oil and the sugar and the zest mixed in with themselves before we really work in the dry ingredients. Some of your flour is going to fall in, and that's okay. But I want to make sure we get our egg broken down and the zest mixed in so there's no like big clumps of the zest. And then maybe the sugar will break down a little bit into finer granules as we're mixing it in. Right now it looks kind of like an egg yolk all by itself. All right, once you've got your wet ingredients pretty well combined, we can start folding in the dry ingredients. So it looks like a pretty firm dough already. It doesn't really look like, I was expecting this dough to be a little more wet, but we still have to add in our zucchini, which I'm going to do now. So this is 1.5 cups worth of zucchini. And for me, this was about a small to medium sized zucchini. So the zucchini that I shredded into this was a little bit smaller than this zucchini. And I did with the recipe didn't say to like wring out any of the liquid, the moisture from the zucchini. So I'm just gonna dump it right in. So I think next time, or what you should probably do, is when we have that well in the middle of our dry ingredients, when we have all of our wet ingredients in that well, I would do what we did with the wet ingredients and make sure the egg and the oil and the sugar and the zest are all well combined. And then on top of that, I would dump the zucchini and mix that up a little bit. Because I've made zucchini bread before, and this is one of the densest doughs I've ever worked with. So this is legit like a bread dough instead of like a cake, which I'm used to the texture of sweet breads like a blueberry bread or a banana bread or something, even being less dense than this. But the zucchini will bring a lot of moisture to our bread. All right, I don't want to overwork this dough. I just want to make sure the zucchini is mixed in well. And then we have our oven preheated to 325 degrees. And the recipe says to grease an 8 by 4 inch baking pan, bread pan. But if you've watched me make any sweet breads before, I only have these little 5.75 inch by 3 inch baking pans. Loaf pans. So I'm just going to evenly distribute our batter between the two. There was one commenter that said this was super dense and they didn't care for it. So we're gonna see. I mean, it smells good, but lemon zest makes lots of things smell good. Lemon zest and cinnamon. Okay, so I'm gonna spread out our batter and make sure it's getting into the corners of our pans. I have a little bit less dough batter in the front one here, so I'm gonna borrow some from the back pan. All right, you don't have to do this because we used raw eggs and raw flour, but I'm gonna give it a little bit of a taste test, a little bit of the batter without zucchini in it. That lemon and cinnamon taste great together. We'll see, I have high hopes. Now, the recipe says to bake it for 45 minutes using the 8x4 loaf pans. So since mine are smaller, I'm gonna start with 30 minutes and we'll see where they're at then. So I just pulled this one out and I'm not even gonna poke it with a toothpick because I can tell that it's still too blonde on top. So I'm gonna put it back in for 5 more minutes. This looks better. Okay, let us get a cake tester out or a toothpick or a butter knife. Nope, it's still a little wet in the middle, so I'm gonna do 5 more minutes. Now I put the other one back in, but I do just wanna test the other bread, the other bread, just in case it cooked faster. And it didn't. So our toothpick's still a little wet. All right, 3rd time is the charm. And we're looking better. Got a nice golden brown on top. And I'm tempted to give it a minute or 2. Let me put it back in. It's just a tiny bit wet on the toothpick and I don't want them to be undercooked. So I'm gonna put it back in just while I test the other loaf. See, they're still a little blonde on top, but they're getting golden around the edges. Yeah, we're gonna give it just a couple more minutes. All right, I think this will be the last time. We'll give them a test just for good measure. Nice. Good. All right, so these are going to hang out for 10 minutes in their pan, and in the meantime, you remember that lemon that we had zested? Not this one, but the one we had zested? Take the juice of that lemon along with a ½ cup of white sugar in a saucepan over medium low heat on your stove, and just stir it all together until the sugar dissolves, or mostly dissolves. And this is what one of the commenters on the original recipes said that they did. And then we're going to drizzle it over the top of our lemon loaves. So it's gonna be super lemony. All right, so it's been 10 minutes. It smells lovely. Ooh, it's very hot. So I'm not gonna take it off of the parchment yet because it's still very soft. But I want it out of the pan so that it can start to cool off better. And then, while we have the parchment still underneath it, let's drizzle on our lemon glaze. So mine isn't perfectly smooth and it started to cool a little bit. So if you can see that, it might look a little funky, but don't worry about it. So it is very liquidy especially if yours is still hot. But we just want to put a little bit of a thin layer on top, and it's gonna get crunchy when it cools. So you'll have a nice little bit of a texture, aspect to it. Okay. You're probably not going to use all of your glaze because that would be a lot. But if you have any puddles, you can spread it out. If you have a pastry brush, this would be a good use for that. Why don't I have a pastry brush? Oh yeah. Should I get into pastry brushes? So there's silicone pastry brushes, and then there's like non-silicone pastry brushes. And the silicone pastry brushes clean a lot easier, but the non-silicone ones hold more in the bristles. And so I just can't bring myself to get either one of them. So I'm just gonna let these cool for 10 more minutes and then we'll give them a taste test. All right, so I cut open one of our loaves. I do recommend waiting more than 10 minutes because, well, more than 10 minutes before cutting it. So we had it in the pan for 10 minutes, good. Bring it out of the pan so it can cool further, good. So I did the second 10 minutes and then I tried cutting into it and it was so soft. So I would wait probably at least a good 20 minutes before you do any cutting into it. But it's not as dense as, it doesn't look or feel as dense as I was thinking it was gonna be from how dense the batter was. But without further ado, let's give it a try. Don't judge me for eating it with a fork. This is just how I roll. Oh my goodness, yes. And that glaze on top, a little shiny, can you see? That brings just the right amount of sweetness. So I just did like one layer of the glaze so that I got all over the top, and it just brings a little bit of the sweetness, and we have that pop of lemon from the zest and from the glaze. Yum. I will be making this again, no doubt about it. Perfect for any time. It's like, lemon is a nice palate cleanser, so that's why I like lemon desserts sometimes. But it's also so summery because it's so fresh. I'll leave the recipe for this down below for you guys, and the link to the original recipe and everything. Go try it out. If you like lemon desserts, don't even worry about the zucchini. It doesn't taste like you're eating a vegetable. So go make this. If you make it, leave me a comment down below letting me know how it went and if you liked it. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, hit that subscribe button and that bell so that you know when I drop the next video. And go make yourself some zucchini bread. Thank you for watching.